I was planning this talk over the weekend, Thursday and Friday, Sage Talk, knowing that so many of you guys tune in each week. One thing kept standing out for me in my mind: the difficulty and the challenges of this conversation, and how to best communicate it. I know this conversation may fall on deaf ears for some, but that I may stay true to myself, you guys, the audience, the Lapeef Network, it's necessary that we talk about it. First, I'd like to use an analogy to broach the subject. For those of you who are in maybe the construction field or tech field, many of you guys understand that what I'm trying to say is when you build something, usually it begins from the ground up and the inside out, not outward in and top down. Don't get me wrong. I know image is important. I understand. However, if you really want to make an impact, whatever changes you make must come from inside out and not the other way around. So hear me out, give me a few minutes, and I'll see if I can break this down for you guys. As Black men, so often we focus on the image we want to craft for ourselves, our parents, but rarely the essence of who we are or would like to be. My point is, who are you, Mr. Black Man? What makes you you? In other words, what's your essence? Over the years on YouTube, Black YouTube particularly, we've had so many conversations about building up our bodies, you know, the look that the women would want to make us more appealing to them, to be chosen or be choosable. And of course, getting our money up, because without that, little else matters. However, if you are a structure, a building, let's say, it would be obvious that we are transforming ourselves the top down and from the outside in. And in any to build anything of substance, it's rarely done that way. Nonetheless, these are the cards that were dealt us. It is what it is. So today I want to talk about building from the inside out. As I stated earlier, who are you, Black man, and what's your foundation? I would like to sum it up in one word. And this word we all know and are very familiar with, but I'm going to put a unique spin to it as I go into defining what I mean by that. And that word is character, which has so many components, but as its essence, I will call it our intrinsic value. Now, that's a financial term I learned many years ago when I worked in financial services on Wall Street. But for this conversation, I will use the definition that has more of a life meaning and the essence of it. So, intrinsic, belonging to a thing by its nature, the anatomy, certain muscles and nerves, something that lies within. Synonyms: native, innate, natural, or true to oneself. So understanding your intrinsic value as a man has to go to the core of who you are. I've laid out three key elements that I believe are at the foundation of that. What I would call your core foundation to be a good or great leader. You must have principles, a code by which you live. That's what your principles are. You must have ethics, a standard that you hold yourself to, regardless of who is watching around you or whether you're alone. And you must have a moral compass, that which makes you the choices you make in your life, regardless of outside influences. For me, these are three innate, similar to muscles and nerves that moves one's body. These key principles should be the foundation of who you are as a man that strives to be a leader, starting with yourself and then with your surroundings about you, family, friends, girlfriends, and at some point, wife or wives. Why do I say that? Simply put, if you strip away the things that today's society values, what remains? For example, money. Money buys us cars, houses, and the accoutrements of success. Our physical appearance, our body, our fitness, our fashion, our style, our resources, the wealth and access, power and influence that we have. If you strip these things away, who are you, black man? You know, the tangible things that society says if you have makes you valuable, those things that I just cited. And if you don't have them, you're not worth a damn. In essence, what is a black man's worth? How is he measured? Again, my question, what's at your core, black man? I will say this. Do not get me wrong. One second. Hold on one second. I just changed my page. Okay, I'm back. I know by now many of you are kind of scratching your head, maybe even mumbling. What the hell does this have to do with leadership or getting a woman to follow your lead? Well, let me kind of sum it up for you. For most women to follow a man, she must know what you stand for, what your non-negotiables. Not every woman will say specifically or ask you questions, and some may or may not even know how to quantify it. But trust me and believe, they know what it is in a man that they seek, and they will test you to see if you have it. Your character, that is, your intrinsic value. There are things that makes you more than you, that makes you more than her. Every woman wants to know, how do I conquer this man? That's part of how a woman defines that she has a man worthy of following. Women in general need something to chase in a man. And this is one of the few exceptions when I will say all women, not some, but all. And mark my words, whenever she finds out what those core things are, she will test you. She will prove you to see if you are who you say you are. And if you fail, meaning you compromise yourself in a moment of weakness, in a moment of emotion, compassion, either in a moment of her pain or in a moment of your joy. If you compromise yourself, you're done. I'll give it to you in a different way. I'll tell you a little story that happened to me about 6 years ago. And this will only matter, I would say, to the men who have lived their life by some form of standard from a very young age. Let's say a teenager into early manhood and to your development as a man, that you have some metric that you carry yourself by, whatever that might be for you. I've always seen on television, I've read in books, and I've heard some of my male friends speak years past about love and the love that will make you do anything for a woman. And to be honest, I've never had that experience in my life. I mean, I believe that I've loved a woman, but I've never been like crazy head out of heels where I would do anything. But 6 years ago, I met a woman, very beautiful. And what you know what's crazy about this story too? Because usually when I meet the prettiest woman, it's when I'm angry, when I'm mad. Something pissed me off, and I have a look on my face like, don't bother me. Kind of weird how it happens. But to make a long story short, I met this woman. She said hi to me first. I looked at her. I was in a bad mood. I just kind of mumbled a response. And we were going to the same city together. So when I got on the bus, she motioned to me to come and sit next to her. So I sat next to her. We started conversation after a while. And then we exchanged numbers. And I was going to get an FBI background check, but not FBI US, FBI out here in Central America because of the job that I was going to get. Anyway, she knew where the building was, so she gave me some instructions. But I got her number and she got my number and we started talking. This woman was drop dead gorgeous. I mean, she was an 8 rolling out of bed and hands down a 10 in makeup and a heels. She was just fine. And I said all this to bring it home that that's the only woman in my life that I found myself where I've broken my rules. And I will say to every man, I think it's important for you as a man that if you are so fortunate and lucky that you can find a woman that will cause you to break your rules, to test you at your core to see who you are as a man. And we had a rocky relationship because like fine women go, they're demanding, egotistical, always kind of used to getting what they want. And there was a lot of riff back and forth between us. The relationship only lasted about 4 years and we broke up. But I will say this, at the core of myself, in the end, I had to regain who I am as a man. And I had to stick to my standards. And I had to tell her no. And I had to cut her loose. Because meeting such a woman in your life, a woman that you can't say no to, that you will bend your standards to. Once a woman know that she can break you, she will break you. And she will try her best to use you simply because, I don't know, I guess it's a thing they do. I'm not a woman, so maybe the women can speak to that that are in the audience. Over time, I thought she had lost respect for me. And one of the things I realized about respect in the eyes of a woman is that once you lose it, you can never get it back. And for 2 years, we have not spoken. And a week ago, she contacted me and she apologized for everything that happened in our relationship. She broke down. Now, this woman is arrogant. She don't bend for anything. She's a Scorpio. She's vindictive. I mean, she's everything that makes a challenging, great woman someone you would want in your life, and for a weak man can destroy many. I never thought this woman would ever contact me again. And simply put, I blocked her on WhatsApp. I blocked her on Messenger. I deleted her number and I deleted all of our messages. I had got to the point where I totally cut her off. So I never anticipated that we would ever speak again. But she contacted me and we have been in talking just going on a week or so, a little more than a week now. And she's trying to come back in my life. And I'm looking at everything and how it was in the past, both the good and the bad. And one thing I will say, if a woman that have ever broken you come back in your life, you need to start from scratch with that woman. You got to break her at every step. You cannot waver, you cannot bend, you cannot flinch as a man. I know this because I've never walked a life where any woman in my past have had me compromise. This woman had me compromise. My intrinsic value, the things that made me a man, for her, I bend. I bend. And I will say this, when she came back and she apologized, the one thing she said to me was, no one has ever walked away from me before. And I will tell you this, to gain a woman respect, like she will test you, you must break her. Most of what women bring to relationships, particularly in modern times, are intangible things, things you cannot see, feel, or touch. For example, love, a feeling that only they can interpret, loyalty, the quality that can only be proven, I would say, with hidden cameras, right? Or if something blow up in your face or don't. Care and support of you. I would say this probably is the only quality in today modern woman that you can kind of see if a woman cares about you. A woman that will prove with little or no prompting that she's willing to do the things that will make you happy and will go out of her way to do so. Obviously, there's one thing that all women can bring to a man that's truly tangible, and that's children, a family. In time past, women used to cook, clean, and do many other things in the upbringing and the raising of children to show their value in relationships. But today, there are things that almost seem meaningless, words that the values of them can be weighed against a feather, and sometimes the feather will win. How do you get a woman to follow your leadership? And obviously, this conversation and how I chose this topic was because it is something that many men deal with. And it was something that I experienced in an aspect of my life that for 40, 50 years of my life, I was always in control. I always had a set of standards that I lived by, and no one compromised me. But I ran into a circumstance and a period in life where I was tested. And to a degree, I thought I failed that test. But now in retrospect, I have to reevaluate and see whether or not did I fail or did I pass? And I think every man would have to evaluate that for themselves. So, how do you know if, how do you get a woman to follow your leadership? I've also broken it down to three basic things. Be self-assured, which means simply be authoritative in the way you speak, move, and act. Speak in a matter-of-fact way. For those of you, and this is an old actor, Yul Brynner, and he used to play in the Ten Commandments movies. He was one of the pharaohs that was brother to Moses, was raised by Seti, and he became Ramses. And he used to speak in a matter of fact kind of way. So it is written, so it shall be done. That's what I mean by that. Be unwavering, meaning be firm in your decisions. Don't be double minded. Don't change your mind back and forth. Don't say something and then capitulate later. Never a good look. And never compromise on your core principles, your intrinsic values. Now, every man would have different elements that make up his core set of intrinsic values. Your core, your principle, the things that are non-negotiable, whether you have money or you don't have money. For you, that is self-determined. As I said earlier, the three core aspects of a man's intrinsic value. What are they? He must have a set of principles that he lives by. He must have an ethical standard, and he must have a moral compass, a code, a standard by which you hold yourself to, and a compass that gives you direction in life. I would like to ask the audience a question, particularly to the men. What are your three core intrinsic values? And how do you measure yourself by them? Now, I will throw out some things to kind of get your juices flowing. I know sometimes the mind needs prompting. So I'll give you some things to think about. And then we could come up on the panel for those of you who would like to have this discussion further, and we can engage in this. One, I would say, is never betray the trust of a friend. Don't sleep with other men's wives or women that you know are in relationships. And I think this is probably the most important one. Don't teach your wife something to hate you for. And I think for most women, they will probably say, don't cheat on me. So what I would say to most men, if you know you're the type of man that you can't be faithful to one woman, tell her that at the beginning of the relationship and let her decide if at some point, particularly if you are a high value man, because Kevin says high value men have options, but all options are not exercisable. And if you do decide to exercise them, a true leader let his team know what the expectations are for them to follow. So let her know from the gate, from the door, that you know what? At some point in this relationship, I may decide to take another woman. Can you live with that? I will be discreet. I will never disrespect you. I will not shame this family. You lay out the criteria, however, you're prompted to do so based on the relationship that you have. But if there's a criteria by which you can deal with more than one woman, if that is something that is important to the woman in your life, negotiate it, work it out. That way she can never accuse you of betraying her trust. That way you don't teach your wife something for her to hate you for.